Under the 5-minute rule, with questions for the witness, I'll begin by recognizing myself. Synthetic opioids, such as fentanyl, remain the primary driver of the increase in overdose deaths. In my home state of Kentucky, for example, more than 2,200 people died from drug overdoses in 2021. Nationwide, more than 107,000 lost their lives, increasing every day and every year. The department's budget submission has listed combating drug trafficking and preventing overdose deaths as a top priority. With that in mind, how can the department claim to be prioritizing the war on drugs when your budget submission for fiscal 24 only requests 4 additional DEA agents? The nation's primary drug-fighting organization, DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, with thousands of employees, in the face of this overwhelming epidemic that we're up against with fentanyl, a poison, you only ask for 4 additional agents and a reduction in program funding for the organized crime and drug enforcement task forces. Our cities are afire with violence and illegality, flooded with killer drugs, and you not only don't ask for more help for DEA agents, but you're actually promoting a reduction in funding for the organized crime and drug enforcement task forces. That I can't fathom. If we were to approve your budget submission as is, the organized crime and drug enforcement task forces would lose $25 million in funding and 70 task force agents. And instead, the department would gain nearly $45 million for zero-emission electric vehicles, cars. Does that sound like the budget request for a department that's prioritizing the war on drugs? I don't think so. Today, the DEA has identified Mexican drug cartels as largely responsible for the production of U.S. consumed fentanyl using China-sourced primary precursor chemicals. How is the department addressing and prioritizing the China-Mexico cartel's U.S. drug trafficking pathway, General?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. I am a former narcotics and violent crime prosecutor. I am very well aware of this problem. The very first thing I did when I came into the Justice Department was to create a violent crime strategy because of the enormous increase we saw in 2020. And therefore, and I have met personally with the families of the victims of the fentanyl crisis. So I'm personally charged with this problem. We are seeking an increase of $342.8 million, a 3.4% increase across Justice Department to counter drug trafficking, a total of $10.4 billion. Now, the budget math and the actual math doesn't always match up. So the actual number of agents that we are requesting are 131, not 4. The reason for the difference in the numbers is that FY23 budget, which only became effective recently, had 127. We're adding an additional 4, and the funding for FY24 will fund the in total number into FY24. In addition, we're seeking 50 diversion investigators and 35 analysts. So the actual total of drug fighting positions we're asking to add to the DEA is 216. OCDF, we're not cutting. We're keeping the same amount in OCDF, $550.5 million. I also want to make clear that with respect to violent crime overall, we are asking for a $1.4 billion increase over last year. This includes increases for the U.S. Attorney's offices, for the DEA, for ATF, FBI, and the Marshal Service, and also particularly important, the way we believe we need to fight both the drug problem and the violent crime problem is in partnership with our state and local partners. So we're asking for a $3.7 billion increase in the grants that we can give for cops hiring, for the Burn JAG, for the new gun crime prevention initiative, so that we can effectively partner in task forces with our state and local partners who are the boots on the ground in the war against both narcotics and violent crime. I want to be clear, this is an extraordinarily high priority for the Justice Department.
What are we doing to intercept or prevent the shipment of the precursor chemicals from China, exclusively from China, through the cartels in Mexico and into the U.S.? What are we doing to curtail the Chinese from forwarding this stuff here?
Mr. Chairman, you put your finger on an enormous problem, which is exactly what you said. The Chinese precursor companies are going into Mexico, being made into fentanyl, either powder or pills there. So we're attacking this in several ways. First of all, I've personally gone to Mexico twice to meet with the President of Mexico and with the Attorney General and with the security ministers there. I've met with them all again in the United States several times, trying to press them to cut off these precursors. Together with the Treasury Department, our government has sanctioned some of the precursor companies that we can find in Mexico. We will, as we did with respect to the the Russian oligarchs in Ukraine, we will seize and freeze and forfeit their materials when we find them. So we are doing an enormous amount, I think, to try to cut off this flow, which you are correct in describing as being the ultimate source of our problem.
Mr. Cartwright?